It is Tuesday, and you know what that means. It means it's No Filter Tuesday. But this episode today is more than a dream come true. Before we take hiatus, it's all I wanted to do was to speak to this amazing lady. My next guest is many things. A lawyer, an activist, a politician, a Nobel Peace Prize nominee, and a best-selling author. I know her as the woman who gave us Georgia. That's how you know her, too. She's more than just the face of the voting movement. She's responsible for the electing of Joe Biden in a swing state in the last election. If you can believe it, on any side, she's also a romance novelist whose new book, While Justice Sleeps, comes out this month. Ladies and gentlemen, I am going to stand and you need to stand. Please welcome the one and the only one, Stacey Abrams.
That is absurd, and I'm going to remember this moment for the rest of my life.
No, I'm
Naomi Campbell.
This moment for the rest of my life. How are you, Stacey? How are you?
I'm well. I am incredibly grateful that I am in this conversation with you, and as hard as the work is, I'm always delighted that I have a chance to do it, that I'm able to be here. And I'm slightly speechless.
You have, I got the privilege to be on a Zoom last year that Carrie Washington had organized for Fair Fight, and just so inspiring.
Thank you.
You have really, for me, in my world, I'm not American. I come from England, but I live in America. You saved America. That's how it looks for us. Yeah.
I was glad to help.
So humble. So, Nobel Peace Prize nominee, how do you feel about that?
I am honored that someone thought enough of me to put my name in to nomination. I know that there are many, many, many people who are much more deserving and who are going to continue to change the world in deeply important ways. And so I'm incredibly grateful, but I look forward to celebrating the winner.
Well, I hope we can all come to Sweden with you. I hope it's not going to be virtual. We can all come to Sweden. Now, we always, on No Filter, we say, let's start from the beginning. So may I ask you, where were you born? Where did you grow up? What was family life like for you?
So I was born in Madison, Wisconsin. My mom was doing a master's degree in library science. My dad worked at the local lab on the college campus, supporting my mom and basically supporting their family. I had an older sister who was 3 when I was born. We lived there until 1976 and moved to Mississippi, which is where my parents are from. So I grew up in Mississippi from the ages of 3 to 15. And then we moved to Georgia because my parents weren't poor enough and decided to go for permanent poverty. My mom left her job as a librarian. My dad was a shipyard worker, and they went to school to become United Methodist ministers. So I watched my parents go to school full time at the age of 40 with 6 children in tow, and 6. I'm number 2 of 6. And they finished graduate school in 1992, stayed a year to let my sister Leslie finish high school. I think she graduated on a Saturday. They were back in Mississippi by Monday.
Wow. I've actually been to Mississippi in 1986. My second state of the United States. I first went to New Orleans, then we drove to Mississippi.
Yeah. Do you remember which community? Were you in Jackson or near the coast?
We drove from New Orleans through Baton Rouge, Alabama, then it's Mississippi. Is that right?
No, you would have gone through Mississippi to get to Alabama. So you probably
Mississippi first.
Yeah, so you probably drove through my hometown. I grew up in Gulfport, Mississippi. And so if you're going to go kind of a straight line across, you'll go Louisiana, you'll travel along the coast, you'll get to Mobile, and then Georgia if you keep going.
And Georgia, and then many, many, many years later, I got to Georgia. I think I was late arrival to Georgia, and I went first to Atlanta.
Of
But
course.
then Pensacola, no, that's on the coast, no?
Yes, that's Pensacola. So Florida, basically South Georgia is North Florida and North Florida is South Georgia. So
Got it. Okay. So now I became aware of you, Stacey, when you were running for governor and hearing about you from friends. Even though I live in America, I'm on in and out, in and out, in and out. But just you to know the women of our culture, you're a hero for us.
thank you.
And you make it seem like there's hope for us, it's possibilities, that we must keep striving for our dreams, that nothing is impossible.
Absolutely. My mom, I love my parents. My dad is an amazing man. He was actually the first feminist I ever knew. But my mother is emblematic of why we keep striving. My mom, dropped out of elementary school because her family couldn't afford shoes and the school bus. She grew up in that abject poverty in the 1950s Mississippi. But she went on to not only go back to school, she graduated as valedictorian. She was the only one of her 7 siblings to finish high school. She went to college. She went to grad school. She went back to grad school. She raised 6 kids. And she has never been vanquished by all of the challenges. And every year we learn of a new sort of Dickensian story about my mom's childhood that makes you just want to buy her everything.
An amazing lady.
Resilient. And I think for women in our culture, it's this memory of we've got new things we can achieve. I mean, what you have done with your career is extraordinary, but even as you've said before, you came to the space because someone else paved part of the way.
Absolutely.
And that this notion of hopefulness is really just remembering our legacy and knowing that we have the obligation to keep doing more.
Yeah, but I feel like we really do.
Yeah.
It's like, so let me ask you, when you ran for governor, that was a tough.
Yes.
How did you feel when you didn't win? Were you disheartened? Because for me, it made you stronger. Again, that word, resilient. How did that all feel?
So the election day was November 6th, and we actually filed several lawsuits, either directly or through allied groups, filed multiple lawsuits to make certain that every vote cast got counted. None of those were contests to actually make me governor. They were always to make certain people's votes got counted. And of the 4 suits filed, we won all or part of every single one. But about midway through the 10-day period for this process, I realized—
This was what year, Stacey?
It was 2018. So between November 6th and November 16th. And about midway through, it hit me really hard that I'm running against the guy in charge of counting the votes, in charge of the system. I'm not going to win this. And so I went through the stages of grief. I did sadness, anger, bargaining. I really enjoyed anger, came back to it several times.
Love that.
And then I added my own 8th step to grief, which was plotting. I was like, fine, I'm not going to get this job. I'm not going to have access to this platform, but the work I wanted to do, the things I told people, if I became governor, here are the things I would fight for. When I argued about voter suppression and said, this is wrong, voter suppression didn't end because the election ended. And so my responsibility, and I think to get past the disheartening part to the resilience, was that my new job was doing the things I said I would do, just figuring out how to do it without the title of governor or the billions of dollars that come with that job.
Yeah. And that's really what you've done. You don't need a title, but you've proven that. You've so proven that you don't need this title to do what you do. And I think for me, the person that I learned that from and first witnessed that from was President Nelson Mandela. Yes. You could be locked away for 27 years, but it didn't stop you and it didn't break you. And you could still come out and achieve what you wanted to achieve.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it took you away from your loved ones physically, but it didn't take your mind. And that's what's to break us down is something that I've come to understand. Even when I was younger and I didn't really understand it, and it used to break me. And then one day I was like, but this is like a maneuver. This is like a strategy. I can't fall for this strategy. Now I got, and it took me a minute to get there. You're a lawyer, first and foremost. And it seems, from what I hear, the bar exam is, and it's a very tough, law school is just tough in general. But Stacey, you wrote novels when you were in law school.
I am very disciplined with my time. So
how did you find the time?
Well, as someone who passionately loves what you do, if you love something, it's going to come out of you. And so the question is, do you give it the time and attention? And so I scheduled my days so that I did the work I needed to do to get out of law school. But I also made sure I was really methodical and intentional about writing. And I will tell you this, when I sold my first novel, I'd read that if you send an editor the first 3 chapters, they will, tell you whether they'll buy it or not. Yeah. And so I sent the first 3 chapters having not written the rest of the book, because it also said that it usually took months for them to respond. Well, mine ended up in front of an editor, Karen Thomas, who wrote me back within like 6 weeks and said, "We want to buy the book. Can you send us the manuscript?" I'm like, there is no book. There are 3 chapters. I thought I had more time. So I was actually in the car with my mom. We were, I was doing a research project in Mississippi, and we were going to see my youngest sister, who was at a high school for children gifted in science. And so I'm driving, and I hand the letter to my mom. We pull it out of the mailbox, and we get on the highway, and I hand the letter to my mom. And so we're driving, and I said, "Well, can you just read it to me? Because I'm assuming it's bad news." And she reads the letter, and it's, we are excited to, request the balance of the manuscript. And my mom's like, "Praise God." And I'm like, "Oh no." She's like, I'm like, "I haven't written this book. I wrote 3 really good chapters." And so the other thing I learned is that I write really fast. When there's somebody who wants to buy something you have promised you can create, I learned to be a very fast writer and to be very disciplined about getting it done. And that's how I got it.
Staying up past midnight into the wee hours of the morning.
Oh yes, because I was still in law school and still trying to write this book, and had to. But I don't require as much sleep, I'm getting older, so more sleep. How much
sleep do you require, Stacey? Now that you say that.
When I was younger, I could get away with 4 to 5 hours. Now I'm kind of like, I need 6 to 7 to be functional. More the 6 side than the 7 side, but I'm also learning that it's good for my health to sleep, so I'm trying to sleep.
I'm right there with you. That's what, I can do the no night of sleeping, but it's for our health, right? So the character that you have throughout your book all represents strong Black women.
Yes.
Can you tell us a bit about the characters?
So in my romance novels, I always wanted to write novels. Well, I originally wanted to write a spy novel about a Black chemical physicist who has to save the world, but was told by friends in publishing back in '99 that publishers didn't publish spy novels by or about women, and certainly not one with a Black woman as the central character. So I just made my spies fall in love. And so my first character was a chemical physicist. Her best friend was an artist, and she got her own book because she turned out to be much funnier than I realized. Then the third book was based on the youngest sister of the hero in the first book. She was a cognitive scientist. Then there was the criminal psychologist / linguist in Never Tell. And then I had an ethnobotanist, a grifter, a lawyer, and a card sharp. So
would you like to see this come to life? It sounds like it should come to life.
I think so too.
It really does. The timing is right.
Well, Never Tell is under development at CBS. And my hope is that people will discover the other novels. I think people tend to think of romance as a very page-oriented storytelling, but I think Bridgerton has disabused them of that.
I agree.
And what I love about my novels is they're always action-driven. Romance is a core part of the narrative, but I always wanted to have adventurous heroines who defy
the way.
Yeah, who just defy the stereotypes and can be as nuanced and as exciting as anyone else.
I absolutely agree. Adventure is the way. So how does storytelling influence your political life?
being in politics, being in activism, when you're talking to community or to another politician, storytelling is inherent. You've got to give people a sense of what is, of why it matters, and then you've got to convince them to do something about it, typically something that is against their grain, because if they were going to do it, they would have done it already. And so for me, the through line of storytelling is about shaping someone's understanding so that they can see themselves not only in the narrative, but see themselves as the hero that solves the problem.
They were part of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you vote, these things change. If you support this, something changes. That you have the choice to shift and shape a new reality, and that you are essential to it.
Well, Stacey, nobody does that better than you, because I'm British and I can't vote, but I was like, I want to be part of their fight. I want to be part of it. I was saying every day to my publicist, find out what they want me to do next. You tell that, and you make us feel that we are all, each in our little part is helping. And that's what you do. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Amazing. Why would a smart, intelligent woman like you want to be part of that swamp in Washington?
So here, I want to solve poverty. I mean, honestly, that's why I do this work. I grew up in a family where my parents worked full time. My mom had a master's degree in library science and was the head of a college library, and still made less money sometimes than the janitor who cleaned the college, because race and gender could be used against her. My dad is this brilliant man who, because he was dyslexic and went undiagnosed for most of his life, could never get a job that let him use his mind. He was a shipyard worker, which is noble work, but it was still work that underestimated his capacity.
Yeah.
And my parents raised us to take care of people, to go out there and say, it's not enough to know there's a problem. Your job is to fix it. And what I realized early on, and I've asked my parents, I'm like, look, the two of you and your 6 kids are not going to fix Mississippi. Shouldn't somebody else be doing this? Because I'm missing the super friends. And mom and dad said, that's called government. And so for me, it was about understanding, how do you scale service? How do you solve these broken pieces in our society that keep people with equal capacity, equal brilliance, equal fire from being able to fully actualize who they are? And that's why, as a society, we created government. And to make government work, you've got to have people who are willing to hold it accountable, but to also introduce good policies and try to get them done. So that's why I do politics.
Is there an ideal solution, or you feel like we are going towards it now? Because, I mean, right now with what's happening in Georgia, there's a lot of productions, Hollywood productions, that don't want to work in Georgia or to do their productions in Georgia. But then people are going to suffer that cannot, local people will suffer by not getting the work that they could have.
I understand the instinct. Boycotts, as we know, as South Africa proved, boycotts have an effect, but they take a very long time and they take a very deep toll. And we don't right now have leadership on the Republican side that is susceptible to that. They do not care about the consequences. The governor has been brazen about his dismissal of the consequences of this economic harm, because he's worried about winning an election. He's not worried about protecting a democracy.
Protecting his people.
And so for me, the issue is boycotts may be a place to land, but we're not at that place yet.
But then where do you go with a boycott? That's the thing. What's the structure? It has to be that it benefits the people.
And what people forget is that the Montgomery bus boycott did not end because the Montgomery bus company decided that it would end segregation. It ended because the Supreme Court said, after 381 days, they actually issued a ruling that desegregated transportation. That in North Carolina, when the NCAA pulled out those games in 2016, the only politician who lost his job was the man who signed the bill, Pat McCrory. But they didn't actually reverse the law for almost a year and a half. And so the urgency I see is that the issues of criminal justice reform, of ending police brutality, of public health, of economic development, of environmental action, of education, they all require current urgency that A
Why do
boycott
they
may
want to
exist
hold us back like this? Why do they want to
because
do this to our
it's about
culture?
it's
Why?
it's about power. And it's also and let's be clear, this is always about power. It's not the party in power that could lose power because new voices enter the conversation always tries to stop those new voices from coming. It's what Democrats did when they were in power post-slavery. It's what Republicans are doing today. But the problem is when you
It's just been another, it's just another time, another era, another place, different
exactly.
names, same thing.
But the thing, people who have power don't like sharing it, or those who do not like sharing power hold on to it by suppressing those and oppressing those who would demand a voice. My responsibility is to just make sure we shout louder and that we use our power. We may not be able to overwhelm theirs immediately, but we can wear them down. And that's what we have to do. Every vote, every election, every protest is about showing that our power is not given by them. And therefore, they don't have the right to
And they don't have the right. But addiction to power is a very dangerous, it's
Yes.
a dangerous line, isn't it? But
That's how
most of these people become addicted to power.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, people like having a parking space with their name on it and getting to cut the line and getting access to materials and to resources that others don't have. And simply the adulation and the honorifics that come with it. One of the responsibilities I've always seen for myself is that I can't take myself that seriously ever. I don't care what the job is and what the accolades are. The minute you start to believe your own hype, the minute you start to
I agree with you on that. I've always said the same.
You lose sight of things, and you start to define yourself by your power, which means that you are deathly afraid of losing it because you lose yourself.
Exactly. I thank you for saying that. I hope you all listen. That's such a life lesson. I think it's a dangerous place to be, to believe in your hype. I've always felt that, and I don't know why. But to suppress our people now in 2021, is there any way that our culture could ever get reparations for what they have been through?
I think reparations is a necessary conversation. There's a bill that's moving through Congress right now that I hope will get the votes and the support it needs, because our first responsibility is to have a national conversation, to actually talk about what it would look like. What does it mean? Right now, we have this very juxtaposed conversation where, oh my God, if we speak it, we are somehow, dismantling society. And on the other side, if we don't have the exact answer today, we're not doing enough. And the reality is we've spent, more than 150 years refusing to have a national conversation about what it looks like. And so I believe that's the first step. I don't think it's the last step. And those who
it's national, but I think it's also world. I even think
yes.
so for my country, Stacey, because it's like, it has to be now. Like, there's laws protecting other cultures and religions. Why can't we have that?
In part because the most venal of sins were committed against Africans. I mean, we have had other communities subjected to racism and sexism and to oppression and to slavery, but the grotesqueness of what was done to Black people by so many, to confront it in a real and organized way, is to admit to so many other moments of just near evil that it's hard to do it, especially for those who think that they shouldn't be held accountable. And the issue is that it's not just about accountability, it's about acknowledgement. It's about recognizing, because for so many, it is the recognition and the understanding of the consequences. If you're going to be held accountable for the consequences, then by God, there should be some accountability for those, or for the systems that created those consequences.
So how do young people today go about voting and doing it in the right political process? When you speak to us during Fair Fight, can you tell us, the audience, what is the right way to do things?
So using reparations as an example, there is no magic in voting. There is not going to be this instant result that resolves every question and that solves every problem. And so we have to stop treating voting as a magic solution. but it is work. It is medicine. There are diseases that afflict our nation, systemic racism, systemic injustice, social inequities. And we have to take the medication of voting, not because it's going to cure it completely, but it's the only way we start to get better. And we know if we don't take our medicine, it is absolutely going to get worse. And so I think we have to treat it as medicine. Or for those who are more athletically inclined, you can't expect to go to the Super Bowl or to the playoffs if you refuse to practice. If you wake up and decide, I'm going to be LeBron, I promise you no. But if you are willing to practice, that's what voting is. It is practicing democracy. It is practicing change. It is practicing demanding your power. And that's what we have to think about it as, because these are intractable problems that have been around since the inception of this nation. And as you know, they are not endemic to the United States. And so we have to, if we want to have that power, no one's going to give it to us.
So how do we now, you have let the people realize and know within themselves that they have a voice and they have a right. And that's what you brought out of people and our culture. So now how do they maintain that and take it through to the end with what they're doing now?
It's remembering that none of these problems were born overnight. They won't be solved overnight. And what they're hoping happens is that we get distracted, that we have a great victory in November or again in January, and we think, okay, we've done our part, we go home. Because the best way to stop someone from changing things is not to crush them because they want to rebel, it's to ignore them. And so we've got to stay engaged. We've got to recognize that the Derek Chauvin trial was an important milestone, but so is sentencing. What happened at that sentencing? And what's happening to Ahmaud Arbery, who was murdered by vigilantes and had a district attorney who refused to prosecute the case? What's happening with the attorney general in Kentucky at his next election?
Brianna.
It's about
why are they withholding the police footage that they won't show?
Exactly.
That's crazy.
Well, and then the question becomes then, who are the judges? What are the rules? Who are the state legislators who made these rules? So we've got to recognize that power doesn't sit with one person. We've got to find all of those places and we've got to make them help hold them accountable. And that's why I'm everywhere.
But Stacey, did you not see it? Like, I felt like, and I've had that finger pointed to me in a different circumstance, but it's the same type of finger. Like when you don't want to show the footage because it obviously, you know that the police are in the wrong. And then when you speak up, like someone like Maxine Waters speaks up, she's inciting trouble. So, okay, she might not have said it in the right way, but you know what that comes from. It's for years of that. And I just feel like it's that same finger thing of, we're going to keep you down.
Well,
and you're going to accept it.
It works if we let it. And that's why I think what you do is so important. I mean, this no filters, you have these amazing conversations, but you also don't wait for relief to come. You started your own organization to deliver it. We have to recognize that no one gives us our power, but they can convince us it's not worth using. If Maxine Waters shut up because someone accused her of saying the wrong thing, then where would we be? I get called everything but a child of God on Twitter. So,
but you ran for governor. Then you came in, you pushed for Biden Harris. Then you came in, Warlock. I mean, most people say, oh, I just don't want anything to do with this anymore. I tried, I'm going to take a step out. But you did not.
No.
So you are living proof that you have to keep persevering.
Exactly. And that you're not guaranteed victory, but you are guaranteed to fail if you don't try. And I'd rather try and fail than, and it sounds terribly hokey, I'd rather try and fail than fail to try.
I agree with that 100%. I mean, Stacey, what would you tell these young people out there today who want to follow in your footsteps, who are young lawyers, who are studying political science, the bar, wanting to support their country, doing the right thing? What do you tell these young, especially our culture, what do you tell them? Not to be disheartened, because
not only to not be disheartened, but know that you're not limited to the identity you give yourself with your job. I mean, technically, I'm a lawyer. I just published, on May 11th, I have a novel coming out, my first legal thriller. And in between, I started.
Please tell us that, everyone. Did you hear that? Stacey's novel.
May
next
11th.
week.
My point is that we're not one thing, and we are not limited to one idea and one way to make change. And as long as people are trying to fit themselves into the mold of someone else, you're going to find it's an awkward squeeze.
Yeah.
And Naomi, I'm fangirling a bit because it's actually honest, because I remember watching you and reading stories about you. And while others were commenting, I thought, this is a strong person who understands who she is and is not going to let herself be shaped by someone else's expectations. That is not to say that you don't meet the needs of the jobs that you have, but we are best and strongest when we create the world we want.
Yeah.
I've created it through writing and through activism and through politics, but I'm also a tax attorney and very proud of it. Figure out the thing that animates you, that makes you wake up. And you
have an incredible sense of humor, I know.
Well, thank you.
I know that.
But also,
I mean, above it all, Stacey, above it all, it's just incredible. Really. I'm not going to lie. I would love you to be the president of the United States. You know that so many people do.
I'm interested.
Is that going to be possible? Can we have that dream?
I share that dream with you, and I'm willing to say it out loud, which makes some people recoil in horror. How dare she imagine?
The way to be.
But that's exactly it.
You're transparent. People can't handle transparency.
Yeah. I mean, look, there's a difference between transparency and telling all my business. If it's important, I'm never going to obfuscate what I mean. And I'm going to declare things when I'm ready.
Yes.
But I'm also going to plan for what I need and do the work I need to do. And the things that I can't sleep, if it keeps me awake at night, then it's something I need to be working on.
I hear you on that. My God, Stacey, there's just so many things. I'm just so grateful for your time. Is there anything that you want to tell us that we need to be doing? What we need to be doing right now with the way things right now is, whether it's a Georgia state or the nation in its entirety?
Voter suppression works best when we think that it's either gone away or we think it's just the way of the world. And what they're hoping for with all of these bills moving through all these legislative bodies, they're hoping we just give up, that we stop talking about it so they can quietly get on with their work. So we need noise. So if you go to stopjimcrow2.com, stopjimcrow2.com, we need folks' voices. We need people to, and we're working in multiple states, but we need you to keep talking about it, keep talking about it, but also support groups that are fighting it. And then we need to push for national legislation, federal legislation, so that can solve some of these problems without it being whack-a-mole with every single state. StopJimCrow2.com. That's what we need. And if you'll do that and go pick up my book, While Justice Sleeps, available at your local bookstore.
While Justice Sleeps, May 11th, everybody. Stacey Abrams, it has been a pleasure, an honor. And I know you will be our president.
Thank you.
And I just want to turn on my TV and see you all over the world at your feet, because you really, when people say earned, you earned.
Thank you.
And you have so much earned, all the respect of so many women from far corners of the world that you may not even know. But know that we love you, we support you, and we're so proud. And we will follow you and do what you want us to do. Even the non-Americans.
Thank you. This has been a delight. Naomi, this is bookending the most amazing day. I was on an event earlier today and got an award and I was introduced by Ellen Johnson Sirleaf.
Wow.
And
Mama Ellen.
Yes. So I'm going to tell you, to have that and this, I'm pretty much going to just go to bed now, because the day's not going to get better.
She's a lovely lady, and she did so much for Liberia. What she had to clean up was horrific.
I know. I'm telling you, I'm done for the day. I'm going to,
congratulations on your award.
Well, thank you. I'm just saying.
What award was it? Can we say?
Yeah, it's the National Democratic Institute's Madeleine Albright Award.
Stacey, congratulations on your award. And it's just, I'm one of many accolades, but I can see that you will get your accolades, but that does not define who you are. It's a lovely, beautiful accolade, but
Thank you.
You got to focus. And it's just incredible to see it. and it's inspiring and uplifting and gives so much hope.
Thank you. I thank you so much for including me in this
Thank
extraordinary
you for
show.
being on No Filter, making my dream come true. Thank you.
I'm so honored.
Thank you. What an honor. Ladies and gentlemen, Stacey Abrams. There were so many lessons in this conversation. I hope that you really write them down and refer to them at least once a day, because I'm going to actually go through this and write them down. Stacey Abrams, honestly, for me, she's our next president of the United States and our Nobel Peace Prize winner, and someone that just really and honestly cares. I hope you enjoyed this conversation today. I hope you'll like this video, and I hope you'll subscribe to my YouTube channel. Same to you on this Tuesday. Round Girls out.